Hey friends, I hope you can get a good look at this engraving. There we go. That is Robert Winthrop, yes, Robert C. Winthrop, who is the subject of our next essay. It says underneath of that, so we have this, gorgeous portrait, this lovely engraving, and underneath we have his signature, Robert C. Winthrop, Speaker. And underneath of that is typewritten representative from Massachusetts. So guys, I know you're getting really excited for this. I mean, look at this guy. Of course it's going to be fascinating. We're reading all about him in our next essay. It's simply entitled Biography of the Honorable Robert Charles Winthrop. This might be another boring one, but that's how it goes. That's okay. We've got the forsythias outside blooming away. We can look at that. Gorgeous yellow blooms out there. We're learning together here, and sometimes learning gets a little dry. We just finished a rather disappointing essay. Essay 163 was called Popular Taste, and I thought it was going to be really good, but I don't know, kind of long-winded and silly. So this is probably what our next essay is also going to be, kind of long-winded and silly. Essay number 164 is, of course, titled Biography of the Honorable Robert Charles Winthrop, Speaker of the House of Representatives. We're here on page 426 of this beautiful old book called American Miscellany. And we're learning together. All right, this book was published in 1865, so their idea of entertainment was a little different, but still miscellaneous, still extraordinary, very miscellaneous. All righty. Essay number 164. Biography of the Honorable Robert Charles Winthrop, Speaker of the House of Representatives. We have much pleasure in presenting to our readers a portrait of the Honorable Robert Charles Winthrop, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the present 30th Congress. And the following interesting biographical sketch, condensed principally from an able article in the American Review. Okay, this gentleman, whose preferment to the high office station which he now holds is a well-deserved and appropriate tribute to his personal worth and public service, has won a not less eminent place in the esteem of the Whig party of the Union. Oh, the Whig party. In the esteem of the Whig party of the Union, by the fidelity with which he has devoted his talents throughout an active political career to the advancement of the good of the country. Mr. Winthrop's participation in the public councils is attended by a fortunate prestige of name and lineage. Oh, well, that's mighty fortunate. Wee bit of nepotism already. In both of these, he may be said to be identified with the history of that portion of the country which he represents. And if there be any truth in the ancient notion that an honorable ancestry constitutes a pledge to patriotism and virtue, how could that have any truth at all? That doesn't conflate at all. An honorable ancestry constitutes a pledge to patriotism and virtue? It's like the complete opposite. If you have honorable ancestry, then you will be the opposite of you'll be unpatriotic and completely bad. He has an especial reason to acknowledge its obligations and to find in them an incentive to the faithful and zealous performance of every public duty. He has descended through a long line of highly respectable ancestors and stands in the 6th degree of lineal descent from that worthy and justly celebrated character John Winthrop, the first governor of Massachusetts, whose biography we have already presented to our readers. So we are fully in the throes of nepotism, even in this book, as we speak. Very meta. Robert C. Winthrop was the youngest son of Thomas L. Winthrop, the late Lieutenant Governor of Massachusetts, and was born in Boston on the 12th of May, 1809, and was educated at Harvard for free, where in 1828 he received his diploma, and with it one of the 3 highest honors awarded to his class. He studied law under the direction of Daniel Webster, and was admitted to the bar of Boston in 1831. He devoted but little attention to the practice of his profession, the bent of his mind inclining him much more to the study of public affairs than to the labors of a vocation which few men pursue but under the spur of necessity, which, in the present instance, did not exist. Mr. Winthrop entered into public life in 1834, being then elected to the legislature of Massachusetts, and has since continued in the public service. He was the representative of Boston in the state legislature for 6 years, during the last 3 of which, he was the speaker of the popular branch of that body, discharging the arduous duties of this post with an address and judgment which elicited the most honorable confidence and approbation from the body over which he presided. The House of Representatives of Massachusetts at that time numbered between 500 and 600 members. We may suppose the duties of the Speaker in such a body to exact the highest degree of parliamentary skill and tact in their administration. In this school the incumbent found full and adequate experience, and he left it after his 3 years' service with the reputation of an expert and efficient and effective proficient in the rule, with the reputation of an expert and effective proficient in the rules of legislative proceedings. Mr. Winthrop first became favorably known beyond the limits of his own state when, in 1837, he visited the city of New York at the head of the Massachusetts delegation, which assembled there with the delegations from the Whigs from many other states to celebrate the great triumph of the Whigs of New York in the elections then recently held. It was a great meeting of congratulation and intended to concert measures for the cooperation of the Whig party in the presidential canvass which was soon to open. It was a brilliant prelude to the election of 1840, of which the results were at once so glorious and so disastrous. On that occasion, no one drew more observation in the large crowd there assembled than the subject of this memoir. His speech in the Masonic Hall, where the congratulations of the occasion were proffered and received, is still remembered by those who were present as one of the most felicitous and attractive incidents of that memorial exhibition. His vivid and animated eloquence stimulated the already excited feelings of the assembly to the highest key of exaltation, and old and young left the scene of this event with common prediction of future eminence to the orator, and more extended renown among his countrymen. His congressional career began in 1840. The resignation in that year of the representative from Boston, Mr. Abbott Lawrence, led to the choice of Mr. Winthrop by a majority so decisive as almost to deprive the election of its title to be called a contest. He thus took his seat in the House of Representatives at the second session of the 26th Congress. He was a member also of the distinguished 27th Congress, where, among many worthy, he maintained a position with the best. A personal and private affection compelled him to resign his seat in the summer of 1842. Personal and private affection. Affliction. Sorry. That makes slightly more sense. A personal and a private affliction compelled him to resign his seat in the summer of 1842. Love to know what that was. Why is it so private and personal after 161 years? His place being supplied by the Honorable Nathan Appleton, who relinquished it at the close of that session to enable his friend to resume his former seat at the commencement of the following winter, which the latter did after an election almost without opposition. Mr. Winthrop has continued ever since to represent the city of Boston by a suffrage equally honorable to him and to the constituency whose confidence he has so signally won. His 7 years' service in the national councils have brought him very prominently before the nation. One of the most accomplished debaters in the House of Representatives, he has participated to some extent in the discussion of all the great questions which have been presented to that body during his connection with it. Habitually abstaining from an obtrusive presentation of his opinion, he has never failed to say a right word at the right season. He has, therefore, always spoken effectively, and in such a manner as to win the esteem and confidence of the House. A steadfast Whig, his position has ever been conservative, strong in the advocacy of the national institutions, careful to guard against encroachments in the Constitution, jealous of the ambition of party leaders, and prompt to denounce the excesses into which partisan zeal has often threatened to plunge the policy of the state. Looking with an enlightened view to the capabilities of the country and justly estimating the elements of national strength and happiness embraced within the Union as it is, he has always contributed his aid to their development through the appropriate action of the Constitution and by the wise policy of protection and encouragement. In the attempts of the administration and its supporters to embroil the country in a war upon the Oregon question, he was the friend of conciliatory adjustment and peace, and had the gratification to find the labors of his compeers and himself in that and had the gratification to find the labors of his compeers and himself in that instance successful. We may take the occasion to observe here that in the prosecution of this object he was the first to propose in Congress a mode of settling the question which, highly equitable and honorable in itself, was seconded by the approbation of the most judicious persons both at home and abroad. The following resolution, moved by Mr. Winthrop on the 19th of December, 1845, contained the earliest suggestion of an arbitration by eminent civilians. This resort was afterward formally proposed by the British government, and if it had not been most unwisely, we must think, refused by the administration, these Charles Dickens sentences are insane. All right, we're going to try this. Like, this sentence is literally this long. Okay. The resort was afterward formally proposed by the British government, and if it had not been most unwisely, we must think, refused by the administration, would have established a happy precedent for the settlement of international differences and have placed the peace of the world, so far as the example of two of the most powerful nations might tend to establish it, upon the foundation of calm counsel and right reason, instead of leaving it at the mercy of tempestuous passion and the bitter supremacy of the sword. Good sentence. The resolutions referred to are in these words: resolved, that the differences between the United States and Great Britain on the subject of the Oregon Territory are still a fit subject for negotiation and compromise, and that satisfactory evidence has not yet been afforded that no compromise which the United States ought to accept can be effected. Resolved, that it would be a dishonor to the age in which we live, and in the highest degree discreditable to both the nations concerned, if they should suffer themselves to be drawn into a war upon a question of no immediate or practical interest to either of them. Resolved, that if no other mode for the amicable adjustment of this question remains, it is due to the principles of civilization and Christianity that a resort to arbitration should be had, and that this government cannot relieve itself from all responsibility which may follow the failure to settle the controversy while this resort is still untried. Resolved, that arbitration does not necessarily involve a reference to crowned heads, and that if a jealousy of such a reference is entertained in any quarter, a commission of able and dispassionate citizens, either from the two countries concerned or from the world at large, offers itself as an obvious and unobjectionable alternative. In the more recent extravagances of those in power, who have committed the nation to all responsibilities of the odious Mexican War, he has acted with the most enlightened Whigs to give it a direction as favorable to humanity and justice as the frenzy of the administration will allow. I wonder if this is an old spelling of frenzy. It's spelled Phrennsy. Isn't that cute? Frenzy. The frenzy of the administration will allow. I think that's what it is. Utterly opposed to the grounds upon which this war has been waged, and condemning, utterly opposed to the grounds upon which this war has been waged, and condemning the usurpation of authority by which the President commenced it, he nevertheless did not scruple to vote with the great body of the Whigs in Congress the first supplies of men and money which seemed to be indispensable to the reinforcement of General Taylor at that moment of supposed exigency of which the administration took such artful advantage. He has been consistently, ever since, an earnest advocate for peace on terms compatible with the honor and justice of the magnanimous and Christian people. The same moderation of opinion which appears in this speech in regard to the great and exciting subjects there referred to is consistently preserved by Mr. Winthrop upon other topics which have agitated the public. A sincere friend of the Constitution, and earnestly desirous to maintain the harmony of the Union, he has conscientiously, we may say, refrained from those ultra views on the subject of slavery, in either the northern or southern aspect of the question, which have so unhappily and so unprofitably distracted some sections of the country. Liberal and tolerant upon that subject, he has firmly maintained his own opinion against those on either side who we may hope will acknowledge, in their calmer reflections, the wisdom and justice of his moderation. The recent election of this gentleman to the honorable post he now fills in the House of Representatives is an expressive token of the good opinion he has won on that theater where his talents have been most profitably exerted for the benefit of the country. No member of that House might better deserve this distinction. His integrity as a man, his accomplishments as a statesman, and his fidelity as a Whig render the choice of the House an honor to both the giver and the receiver, while his parliamentary skill in the appropriate functions of his office enable him to requite the favor he has received by the usefulness of his service. The address he made to the House on the occasion of taking the chair exhibits a just appreciation of the duties committed to him, and affords an example of graceful dignity of style which may be commended to the imitation of his successors. It is worthy of being preserved, and we therefore submit it in the judgment of our readers. We therefore submit it to the judgment of our readers. All right, here's his speech. Gentlemen of the House of Representatives of the United States, I am deeply sensible of the honor which you have conferred upon me by the vote which has just been announced, and I pray leave to express my most grateful acknowledgments to those who have thought me worthy of so distinguished a mark of their confidence. When I remember by whom this chair has been filled in other years, and still more when I reflect on the constitutional character of the body before me, I cannot but feel that you have assigned me a position worthy of any man's ambition, and far above the rightful reach of my own. I approach the discharge of its duties with a profound impression at once of their dignity and of their difficulty. 7 years of service as a member of this branch of the national legislature have more than sufficed to teach me that this is no place of mere formal routine or ceremonious repose. Severe labors, perplexing cares, trying responsibilities await anyone who is called to it, even under the most auspicious and favorable circumstances. How, then, can I help trembling at the task which you have imposed upon me in the existing condition of this house and of this country? In a time of war, in a time of high political excitement, in a time of momentous national controversy, I see before me the representatives of the people almost equally divided, not merely, as the votes of this morning have already indicated, in their preference for the persons, but in the opinion and in principle on many of the most important questions on which they have assembled to deliberate. May I not reasonably claim in advance from you all something more than an ordinary measure of forbearance and indulgence? For whatever of inability I may manifest in meeting the exigencies and embarrassments which I cannot hope to escape, and may I not reasonably implore, with something more than common fervency, upon your labors and upon my own, the blessing of that almighty power whose recorded attribute it is, that he maketh men to be of one mind in a house. Let us enter, gentlemen, upon our work of legislation with a solemn sense of responsibility to God and to our country. However we may be divided on question of immediate policy, we are united by the closest ties of a permanent interest and permanent obligation. We are the representatives of 20 millions of people, bound together by common law and a common liberty. A common flag floats daily over us, on which there is not one of who would see a stain rest, and from which there is not one of us who would see a star struck. And we and we have a common constitution, to which the oaths of allegiance, which it will be my first duty to administer to you, will be only, I am persuaded, the formal expression of those sentiments of devotion which are already cherished in all our hearts. There may be differences of opinion as to the powers which this Constitution confers upon us, but the purpose for which it was created are inscribed upon its face in language which cannot be misconstrued. It was ordained and established to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Union, justice, domestic tranquility, the common defense, the general welfare, and the security of liberty for us and for those who shall come after us are thus the great objects for which we are to exercise whatever powers we have been entrusted to us. And I hazard nothing in saying that there have been few periods in our national history where the eyes of the whole people have been turned more intently and more anxiously toward the capital than they are at this moment, to see what is to be done here and now for the vindication and the promotion of these lofty ends. Let us resolve, then, that those eyes shall at last witness on our part duties discharged with diligence, deliberations conducted with dignity, and efforts honestly and earnestly made for the peace, prosperity, and honor of the Republic. I shall esteem it the highest privilege of my public life if I shall be permitted to contribute anything to these results by a faithful and impartial administration of the office of which I have now accepted. Mr. Winthrop's talents are of the highest order. Well and ably has he improved the important advantages afforded to him. Modest and retiring in his habits, kind and courteous in his manners, easy of access, strong and enduring in his friendships, a man peculiarly amiable in all the amenities of private life. It's weird. A man peculiarly amiable in all the amenities of private life. So he's happy when he's alone. To do a kindness to another without the knowledge of the world constitutes his greatest happiness. Okay, there we go. No selfish or restricted principle is suffered to lurk in his heart. He is a man without guile or deceit, and a faithful and able adviser. Possessed naturally of a strong understanding, he seldom fails forming a correct judgment on every important question, and in cases of difficulty his advice and opinion are invaluable, and to the benefit of his counsels his friends are always welcome. The speaker is 40 years of age. He may be presumed to have a lengthened career of great public usefulness before him. As a general principle, it will always hold true that men who throw aside the consideration of selfish aggrandizement, who put away the blandishments of pleasure in their youth, and who dedicate themselves from the first dawn of manhood to their country and the cause of political and religious freedom, whose virtues render their lives one scene of solicitude and anxiety for others' happiness, will sooner or later enjoy the confidence and love of all whose good opinion is to be appreciated. Indeed, disguise it as we may, there can be no real happiness enjoyed or public usefulness promoted unless we adopt and pursue those objects calculated to enlarge the mind, meliorate the disposition, and promote the best interests of mankind. We conclude this brief and imperfect sketch with the sincere expression of the hope that his constituents may long enjoy his services and open the way for him to yet higher distinction. Well, that's nice. I hope the guy who writes my obituary is that nice.